Patch 14.10 has absolutely shaken up the solo queue meta as new strong picks have emerged for every single role. There have already been a bunch of hotfix changes issued as well, which we'll be covering in detail throughout the video. So in today's video, we'll be providing you guys with a tier list for every single role in Patch 14.10. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to stay up to date and so you don't miss out on next week's changes. And remember, if you're struggling to climb in League, SkillCapped is the only place that guarantees you'll climb at least 5 divisions while actively using our service. Otherwise, you can claim a full refund. We do this because our service really works, and this is the best time of the season to get in on SkillCapped as we've just released tons of site-exclusive courses designed for you to power learn the most important concepts for climbing in League of Legends stupidly fast, compared to those who don't use SkillCapped. Join today for unlimited access to the world's most famously effective League of Legends guides, and remember, one subscription gives you access to all of our other games as well. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description below to stop wasting time being hard stuck and get the rank you actually want. And with that said, let's get into it. Let's start the video off by quickly going over all the item hotfix changes that Riot pushed to live servers. Essence Reaver saw a buff with its AD going up from 65 to 70. Xayah is one of the only champs who's actually been liking the new Essence Reaver, as the removal of the Spellblade passive has really hurt Smolder, Ezreal, and Gangplank a ton. Even with this buff, it won't be enough to significantly boost the strength of any of those champs. Blackfire Torch ended up shipping in an extremely OP state, so its burn damage has been hotfix nerfed. The base burn is down from 60 to 45, while the AP ratio on the burn is dropped from 12 to 9%. Honestly, it's not that bad of a nerf considering how broken of a state it's been in, and we can't see the changes being enough to stop people from building it. We'll go into more detail as to which champs are best with Blackfire when covering the tier lists for jungle and mid. The component item to Blackfire Torch, called Faded Ashes, has also been nerfed, with his AP dropping from 40 to 30 and burn down from 21 to 15. The bonus damage to monsters has been unchanged though, which is kind of odd considering it's junglers that have really been abusing the item the most. Melee support saw a nice uptick in power at the start of the patch due to the Knight's Vow and Zeke's changes, so Riot has hotfix nerfed Knight's Vow. The health has been lowered from 300 to 200, while ability haste is down from 15 to 10. Just one hotfix nerf to ADCs for mid-patch, and it's to Zeal, with crit on the item dropping from 20 to 15%. So a bit of a weaker state for ADCs now, while they're waiting to complete their legendary attack speed items. The major shift in meta up in the top lane wasn't really due to the item or runes changes, as the nerfs to Ghost were a huge blow to a lot of champs. Darius in specific has been struggling a lot more in 14.10, not only due to the Ghost nerf, but the removal of the Tenacity rune. With less access to Tenacity and a shorter duration on Ghost, it's now less reliable for Darius to stick on his targets and gives him a shorter window to be most effective in fights. So as a result of these negative changes, we'll be dropping Darius down the tier list, going from S into B tier. Now, one champion who's been loving 14.10 and has become much stronger is Irelia. Blade of the Ruined King changes have turned out great for Irelia, while the rework to Kraken Slayer has made it a viable purchase for her. You now have a really snowbally 2-item core that you can look to run on the champ, with the Blade Rush into Kraken second. Irelia never runs Ghost and didn't take Tenacity and runes either, so she was not impacted by those negative changes either. It's just all around a great patch for Irelia, with her becoming stronger and many other top lane champs dropping in power. We'll be giving Irelia a push up the tier list for mid-patch, moving her from A into S tier. So if we have a look at how the top lane meta is aligned for 14.10, OP tier will consist of Urgot and Camille. Camille had been performing extremely well in recent patches, so with a bunch of top lane champs around her becoming weaker for 14.10, she takes an added step forward. Press the Attack has become a stronger isolated rune in 14.10, and it's given Renekton a nice boost in strength. Black Cleaver buffed also has been huge for Renekton, as multiple changes have gone in his favor, and we're moving him up the tier list as a result. You'll notice Garen, Nasus, Singed, Darius, and Mundo all dropping down the tier list, and it's all due to one nerf in specific. Every single one of those champs runs Ghost, and with the Summoner spell heavily nerfed in 14.10, it's negatively impacted them quite a bit. We noted in the pre-patch tier list that we were expecting for Gangplank to be worse off due to the item changes, and that has been what's played out so far. Riot has given Essence Reaver the hotfix buff, however. Even then, we don't see it doing too much for GP, so we've got him rated as a bottom of the barrel C tier pick. And before we head into the jungle, let's boost your win rate with SkillCapped's Tip of the Week. An extremely important habit we want you to build is scouting your opponent's runes through an app or website while you're in the loading screen. We don't want you to focus on the players in the lobby or your teammates' stats, just the runes your lane opponent took. This is because in current League, a lot of the current power and laning resides in your rune page. Looking up this information can often give you a better indication for how to play the matchup, even more so than the matchup itself. Playing against a victor with a fully aggressive rune page compared to one with a full scaling page is literally a completely different experience, and your plan would change entirely. The next step is trying to track these runes for both yourself and your opponent before trading. For yourself, your cooldowns will be displayed down here. For your opponent, make sure you always click on them, as some of their runes are tracked up here. You would be surprised how many high-level trades are made solely on rune cooldowns. They are that important to laning these days. For yourself, always make sure you have as many of them up before trading. Comet, Mana Flow Band, Taste of Blood, Electrocute, First Strike, etc. Make sure you have all your damage sources up before trading. As for your opponent, make sure you track anything you can see up here. Typically, you can only see their main keystone up here, but you can see if they have bone plating up as well. It won't show you if it's up, but it will show you when it's down, so you can time your trades appropriately. This is a massive cooldown, so always make sure to track it before fully committing to a fight. If you want to learn more game-changing trading tips like these, then take our new Season 14 trading course at SkillCapped.com. You can check it out with the link in the description below. It's really no secret at this point that AP junglers have taken over the meta in 14.10. Any jungler who can run the item combo of Blackfire Torch and Liandry's is in a great spot at the moment. One jungler who's a cut above all else though is Karthus. Access to 2 burn items is just massive for Karthus, as it gives his R so much damage output. The burn applies to every single champ you ult, so you just get so much value. Malignance and Luden's procs only apply to one champ, so Blackfire passive applying to all champs just makes it way more OP. So even with the hotfix nerfs, changes don't seem to be overly impactful, so we'll be moving Karthus up into the OP tier. One jungler who isn't a Blackfire user who has gained a good amount of strength for 14.10 is Xin Zhao. Xin loves the Black Cleaver buffs, as he's thriving right now with a Sundered Sky into Cleaver 2-item core. With ADC in such a broken state for this patch as well, playing a strong ganking jungler like Xin Zhao is super high value, as being able to get your bot lane ahead will make games so much easier to win. So with many positive factors helping out Xin Zhao for this patch, we'll be moving him into the jungle S tier. Diving into the jungle tier list now, the OP tier will be jam-packed with Blackfire Torch users, as Karthus, Lilia, and Talia are all incredibly strong carries for 14.10. You run the 2-item core of Blackfire and Liandry's on those 3 champs and end up spiking super hard in the mid game. Even Morgana jungle is back in a really good spot right now, so if you enjoy those more off-meta jungle picks, she's in the S tier for 14.10. Other than AP junglers dominating the meta for this patch, there have been a few champs that have lost a bit of strength due to item and rune changes. Bel'Veth and Viego have not been liking the Kraken Slayer changes, and both champs have lost a bit of power. With Futures Market being removed from the game, it has hurt a couple of lethality junglers. Kha'Zix and Rengar in specific are 2 champs that have been having a much more difficult time finding success right now, and are both lower down the tier list. Master Yi is also one jungler who's really been decimated by the 14.10 changes. Lethal Tempo being removed hurts Yi a ton, as he just doesn't have a great alternative that provides him nearly as much power as Lethal Tempo did. Yi even was directly nerfed a few patches back, which, now that we think of it, was kind of an odd change in the first place if Riot knew they would be removing Lethal Tempo. Why even directly nerf Yi in the first place if they were planning on removing the rune he was so reliant on? It didn't really take a rocket scientist to realize that Yasuo and Yone would end up as 2 of the bigger losers of the patch. Even with Infinity Edge buffed, the removal of Lethal Tempo hurts both champions a ton, especially in the early game, as their extended fight strength is just so much weaker. With that being said, a lot of players are building the champions incorrectly right now, so that's definitely holding back their win rates a bit. Kraken is out now as a core item on both champs due to the removal of crit, but for some reason, a lot of players are still building it. Yasuo's best rush item is Phantom Dancer, and you follow that up with Infinity Edge second. As for Yone, Blade of the Rune King Rush is performing the best, with Shield Bow second and then IE third. As for the rune page, it's Fleet Footwork that you should be taking. The new rune Absorb Life is also doing quite well in place of Triumph. Once players start running the optimal setups on Yasuo and Yone, we don't think they are quite as weak as their win rates may suggest, so we'll be leaving them in the B tier for now, even though you'd probably expect them to be C tier just based off how bad their win rates are showing. A mid lane champion who hasn't been in the spotlight for quite some time but has seen a nice surge in strength for 14.10 is Victor. Vic has been dominating with the core build of Blackfire Torch and Liandry's. Victor is a mage who can do really well in extended fights due to his low cooldown on Q, so the ramping passives on both the burn items synergize very well with him in the mid to late game. The new First Strike is also really strong for Victor, as it allows him to accelerate into his core build quicker than before. With the changes, First Strike gives you a lot more gold early on in the game, but less later, which is actually really good for a champ like Vic, who has such a nasty 2-item core right now. You also take the new rune cash back so that you can hit your Liandry spike faster. So lots of positives for Victor in 14.10, and we'll be pushing him into the mid lane S tier as a result. Moving on to the mid lane tier list, lots of movement for mid patch, as it's Blackfire Torch champions pushing above everyone else. As if Brand wasn't already OP before, Blackfire gives him an even nastier core build and solidifies his spot in the OP tier even further. Hwei, Malzahar, Victor, Vel'Koz, and Cassio are a bunch of mid lane mages who are super strong with the double burn build and are all in the S tier for 14.10. A few mid lane champs who ended up losing strength due to the changes this patch were Katarina and Veigar. Kat losing tenacity in runes has hurt her quite a bit as she really doesn't want ability haste, so that rune taking up tenacity's slot has very little value for her. As for Veigar, unlike Victor, he really doesn't like the way that first strike was changed. It's much easier for someone like Vic to proc first strike consistently in lane, whereas Veigar got a lot of his power from stacking first strike gold in the mid to late game. So because first strike is now weaker later on but stronger earlier, it's been negative for Veigar. Veig also does not have the ability to abuse the burn build, so he's just fallen behind in priority compared to many other mages in 14.10. The only role that received hotfix changes to champions for this patch was ADC, and there were 4 champs changed in total. Corki was one of 2 champs who saw buffs as his Q damage at max rank was increased, E bonus AD ratio went up, and R bonus AD ratio was increased too. Essence Reaver buffed helps out Corki as well, so that's another positive change for him. There's definitely some optimization that can be done as well, which would help out Corki's analytical standing. 70% of Corki players are maxing Q out first. However, Emax has been outperforming by almost 3%. When playing bot lane Corki, you're not as reliant on the wave clear from Q as you would be playing in mid lane, so maxing E out first allows for a stronger skirmish and just more reliable damage in general. You literally cannot miss your E damage when you're fighting, whereas with Q, it's just inevitable you're going to miss the spell from time to time. Prior to these hotfix changes, Corki was looking like one of the weakest ADCs, but he should now solidify a spot as at least an average pickup, so we're placing him in the B tier for mid-patch. With Essence Reaver and Navori being fundamentally changed in 14.10, it's really hurt Smolder as he doesn't have a build that's giving him any strength. Riot has gone ahead and hotfix buffed Smolder so that his base AD, base health, and health regen are all up. Win rates aren't everything, but considering Smolder had been sitting at 43% prior to these changes, we just don't see the adjustments being anywhere near enough to push him back into a viable spot, so he's going to remain in the C tier. Our pre-patch prediction in that Draven would end up as one of the most broken ADCs played out to fruition, so Riot has gone ahead and issued some hotfix nerfs. Passive gold has been lowered from 40 base down to 10, while Adoration stack bonus is down from 2.5 to 2. Q damage is also going down by 5 at all ranks, so this change is a revert to the buff Riot gave Draven a few patches back. So definitely a decent hit here to Draven, and we no longer see him being one of the premier ADCs in 14.10, so we're dropping him from OP into A tier. Samira is another ADC who had shot up in strength drastically due to the item changes, so she's been hotfix nerfed too. AD growth has been lowered from 3.3 to 3. W damage bonus AD ratio is down from 80 to 60%, while R damage total AD ratio drops from 50 to 45%. So the early game strength of Samira really doesn't change at all due to these nerfs, it's just her mid to late game where you'll feel it a little. As a result, we don't see these nerfs hitting Samira that bad, and we'll be leaving her in the ADC S tier for now. So, having a look at how the ADC tier list is shaping out, we've got Jhin, Karthus, and Jinx taking home the OP tier slots. Karthus is more of a niche pick down in the bot lane, but he's just so strong right now that we cannot ignore him despite his lower play rate. If you want to spam an off-meta pick that has a ton of strength right now due to the new burn build, Karthus is the play. Jhin has been loving 14.10 with more AD on his items, and our pre-patch prediction of him being an OP ADC has played out very nicely. Jinx, on the other hand, is one ADC we did not expect to be liking the patch as much due to lethal tempo being removed, but she's fitting in just fine. Analytically, Jinx is even performing better in 14.10 as she's able to run the core of Infinity Edge and Phantom Dancer, which is giving her a mass amount of strength in the mid game. Fleet has also proven to be a completely viable alternative to lethal tempo, and Press the Attack is even an option as well if you want some more damage when paired with a melee support. Caitlyn is going to be adjusted further up the tier list for mid-patch as she's another ADC who has been dominating with access to more AD. The 2-item core of the Collector and Infinity Edge is really great for Kate as she doesn't even need to run an attack speed item to succeed right now. The amount of value that was added onto this core in 14.10 was nuts as the total cost of the core only went up by 200 gold, but you're getting 20 more AD, which in and of itself has a gold value of 600. The biggest winners from the support role in 14.10 were melee supports, as the changes to Knight's Vow and Zeke's Convergence were amazing for them. Rel in specific has been loving this patch, as not only have her core items become stronger, but she synergizes so well with what's in meta for ADC. With Samira, Draven, Caitlyn, Jhin, and Jinx being played at very high rates, it gives Rel a lot of added strength as she thrives much more with ADCs who can easily follow up on her engage plays. So we'll be adjusting Rel's tier list placement for mid-patch as she's being bumped up into the support OP tier. So for the support tier list, you're going to notice it's pretty top heavy with melee supports right now. OP tier is being shifted around with Sona and Melio dropping down while Rel and Leona move up. All three of the OP tier supports can take advantage of the Zeke's and Knight's Vow changes, which has provided them with a lot of added power. Maokai and Nautilus are also being moved moved up the tier list for mid-patch, as they've been excelling with the item changes as well. As a result of all these melee supports rising in strength, it's indirectly pushed a bunch of enchanters further down the tier list. On another note, with ADC items becoming stronger for this patch, it's evident that playing a support who can provide early game snowball strength is most optimal to succeed. Whichever ADC gets ahead is going to provide their team with a huge advantage, so spamming those melee supports in the OP and S tier is the way to go for 14.10. Alright guys, one last thing, our rank up guarantee is insane. It's like signing up for the gym and getting a refund if you don't get ripped. That's how confident we are in SkillCapped. We obsess over making the best guides with top players, rigorous testing, and top tier video editing to make your climb easy. If you're ready to level up, visit SkillCapped.com and see the difference. So there you have it guys, a complete look at the solo queue meta as we reach the midway point of 14.10. Thank you all so much for watching, we'll see you back soon.